Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we've got something pretty fascinating. It's this unexpected connection between, believe it or not, a classic children's poem and some really deep insights into how we understand information, how we sort truth from noise. Yeah, our source is a series by Greg Elkan called Jabberwocky, How Not to Interpret the Bible. It's from his Elkan's Word for Today devotional. So our mission here is to really unpack Greg Elkan's perspective. How do we discern truth? How do we avoid getting tripped up by misinterpretations, especially with complex texts? We're going to use Lewis Carroll's Jabberwocky as this kind of surprising lens to look at how we think about information.
And this is so relevant for you listening right now. I mean, we're flooded with information constantly, right? Learning to tell the difference between real insight and just, well, nonsense explanations dressed up as wisdom. That's a crucial skill today. Greg Elkan focuses on the Bible, sure, but the principles, they apply everywhere.
Okay, let's dive in with that poem. You probably know it. "'Twas brillig and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves and the momraths outcrabe." Sounds fun, but it's designed to be nonsense. It doesn't map onto our reality.
Exactly. It's playful chaos.
But here's where Elkan throws a curveball. He makes this bold statement. Not many will be able to understand Lewis Carroll's Jabberwocky, but everyone can understand the Bible. Now, that probably makes you pause, right? Because many people find texts like the Bible quite complex, maybe even mysterious.
Yeah.
So what's he getting at? What's the distinction he's making?
It's a really critical distinction Elkan makes here. He says, and this is key, we don't need faith to understand the Bible. We only need faith to believe it. Think about his example, John 3.16. The words themselves, the sentence structure, the concepts, God, love, the world, Son, belief, eternal life. You can understand what those words mean intellectually.
Okay, so comprehending the message is one thing.
Right, that's the understanding part. It's accessible. Whether you accept that message, whether you place your trust in it, that's belief. That requires faith. They're two different steps. Understanding comes first, cognitively.
Okay, that makes sense. And Elkan says this distinction is really important. Why? He gives two main reasons. First, he argues it empowers every single person to read and understand the Bible for themselves. No special decoder ring needed.
Removes the gatekeepers in a way.
Exactly. And second, and this feels really significant, he says it helps protect people. Protect them from being misled by strange Bible interpretation methods that false preachers use to promote heretical and dangerous teachings. It's about discernment.
It really is. It's sort of intellectual self-defense in a way. And Greg Elkan wraps this idea up with this fantastic, almost paradoxical quote he mentions from another Bible teacher. The Bible, as simple as it is very complex. And as complex as it is very simple.
Simple enough to grasp, complex enough for a lifetime. I like that.
Yeah, it hints at layers of meaning, but the core is accessible.
So if understanding is separate from belief, what happens when understanding goes wrong? When we misunderstand? Elkan brings in Humpty Dumpty, right, from Through the Looking Glass. Alice meets Humpty Dumpty. And even though Jabberwocky is just nonsense verse, Humpty acts like he's the expert explaining it all. He gives these definitions with such arrogance. Brilliant. That means 4 p.m. when you start broiling dinner. Slithy. Oh, that's live and slimy.
Right, just making it up as he goes along.
Exactly. Toves are like badgers, but also like lizards and like corkscrews. The definitions are absurd, but it's the confidence, the air of authority that's really striking.
And Elkan draws a direct line from that, from Humpty Dumpty to what he calls would-be preachers today. People who teach maybe prophetically, but are essentially doing the same thing. They conjure deep revelations from thin air, often with that same unshakable confidence. It's like they're explaining Jabberwocky. Yeah, and Elkan points to the Bible itself, 1 Timothy 1.7, where the Apostle Paul warns about people who are very confident but do not understand what they are saying or the things they insist on so confidently. It's an ancient problem, really. Humpty Dumptyism.
Humpty Dumptyism, I like that. So what's the underlying principle here? Elkan gives us this powerful idea. When the purpose of a thing is unknown, abuse is inevitable.
That's huge. Think about it.
Yeah. If you don't know the why behind something, a rule, a text, a policy, anything, you can twist its meaning to fit whatever you want. It's how misinformation thrives, right?
Take something out of context. Ignore the purpose.
Precisely. You can make it say anything. So Greg Elkan says the responsibility, the onus falls on us. We need to engage critically. We need to ask, is this genuine insight or is it just spiritual candy from Humpty Dumpty? Yeah. We have to discern. But it's not just about the Humpty Dumptys, the confident explainers of nonsense. Elkan turns the spotlight on Alice, too. Her reaction is also a problem. She hears Jabberwocky, knows it doesn't make sense to her, but what does she do? She calls it very pretty. Why? Because, as the text says, she didn't like to confess, even to herself, that she couldn't make it out at all.
The politeness trap. Or maybe the ego trap.
Right. And because she does that, she actually ends up helping Humpty Dumpty. When he gives his ridiculous definition for to gimble, Alice jumps in and adds her own interpretation for the wabe, saying it's the grass around a sundial. She participates in creating the nonsense because admitting ignorance felt worse.
And Elkan sees that happening all the time. He says there are many Christians today, like Alice, people who encounter a difficult biblical passage have no clue what it means, but instead of saying, I don't know, they call it pretty or deep or mysterious. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes they even go on to teach their vague impressions as if they're profound insights.
And Elkan notes that the Apostle Paul, again in 1 Timothy, uses really strong language for this kind of behavior. He quotes verse 6.4, describing people who are proud, knowing nothing, getting tangled up in arguments about words, leading to envy, strife, railings, evil suspicions.
Yeah, it's not harmless, this pretending to know. It creates conflict and confusion.
What's the way out? What's the antidote Elkan offers?
It's simple, but profound, he says. There's nothing wrong with I don't know, just admitting it.
That feels liberating, actually.
It is. Elkan frames it beautifully. He says that admittance of ignorance is an expression of humility. And that humility, he argues, is a key requirement for actually receiving insight, especially from God. He points to Psalm 25.9, God guides and teaches the humble.
So saying I don't know isn't failure, it's the first step to actually learning something real.
Exactly. It opens the door, pretending closes it. It's about being okay with the process of learning, rather than needing to project instant expertise. That's crucial for genuine growth in any field.
Okay, so we've talked about words and understanding. Now Elkan shifts gears a bit into the world of numbers, specifically a practice called gematria. It's basically assigning numerical values to letters, words, or phrases to find hidden meanings or codes. It started in esoteric Judaism, but some people apply it to the Bible.
Right. You hear examples like the Hebrew word for truth, emet, adding up to 441, or the Greek name Isus, Jesus, adding up to 888.
And Elkan mentions even more complex methods, like Bible codes taking the first letter of a verse, then every 10th or 50th letter after that to spell out a hidden message. And the variables can be tweaked, change the starting letter or the skip number.
And Greg Elkan is. Well, let's just say he's not a fan. He's quite blunt. He says if gematria sounds ridiculous, it is. His criticisms are pretty clear. It leans heavily on personal biases and assumptions. You can basically make the numbers fit what you want them to mean, leading to conflicting interpretations.
So confirmation bias baked into the method.
Pretty much. He says it can be used to support preconceived notions or agendas, and it distracts from the straightforward meaning of the text itself. It pushes people towards mysticism and numerology instead of the clearer message.
Okay, so that's gematria in its sort of formal sense. But Elkan then asks us to pause before we just dismiss it as something only esoteric crackpots do. He wants us to look at how we might use numbers sometimes. He brings up common examples of biblical numerology things that are generally accepted, like 1 representing God's unity, maybe from Deuteronomy 6.4, or 2 for unity or witness from Matthew 18.19, or 3 for the Trinity, citing 1 John 5.7.
And he acknowledges that these often are valid observations. Bible writers did sometimes use numbers symbolically in consistent ways. We can see those patterns.
There's a but.
There's a but. Elkan warns this is where we can sometimes slide into our own kind of gematria territory, even without realizing it. He gives these examples. Someone saying, oh, May must be a month of grace because it's the 5th month, and 5 is the number of grace. Or telling someone, hey, this is your 7th year in business, so God will perfect things for you this year because 7 is perfection.
Ah, I see. Taking a possible symbolic meaning and turning it into a rigid formula or a prediction based purely on the number itself.
Exactly. Imposing a meaning that isn't necessarily there, looking for a secret sign in the calendar or the count of years. It's a subtle trap, like people seeing 11:11 on the clock and thinking it's a cosmic message just for them. It feels meaningful, but is it grounded?
And this loops right back to the beginning, doesn't it? When we start conjuring meanings out of thin air, whether it's from nonsense words like Humpty Dumpty or from numbers used out of context.
We're back in Looking Glass land.
Yeah. We're essentially doing the same thing Alice and Humpty did. We're creating our own Jabberwocky explanations because the raw number or the difficult text feels like it should mean something specific right now.
But Greg Elkan brings it back to something much more direct and, frankly, empowering. He says, look, it is your month of grace if you say it is your month of grace. It is your year of perfection if you say it is your year of perfection.
Regardless of the number.
Regardless of the number. His point is, you don't need mystical numbers or hidden codes to access God's blessings or promises. He quotes 2 Corinthians 1.20, quote, all the promises of God in him are yea, and in him amen. It's about faith and God's declared word, not finding loopholes in the numbering system.
It frees you from having to find these external, sometimes arbitrary validations.
Exactly. It puts the focus back on direct relationship and understanding, not on deciphering supposed codes.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive, Greg Elkan's journey through Jabberwocky has given us some really practical tools for thinking. We talked about that vital split, understanding something intellectually versus actually believing it. We saw the danger of the Humpty Dumpty problem, confident nonsense.
And the Alice problem, pretending to understand out of pride or politeness, and the importance of humility, of being okay with saying, I don't know.
Right. That being the actual key to learning. And then this whole gematria trap, how we can sometimes invent meaning from numbers or patterns, creating our own kind of Jabberwocky.
So maybe a final thought to leave you with, based on all this from Elkan. Where might you be encountering Jabberwocky in your own life right now? Are there things you've just accepted, maybe called interesting or deep, without really probing if they make sense, if they're grounded?
That's a challenging question.
It is. But how could embracing that humble, I don't know, actually lead you to more authentic insights, cutting through the noise in whatever area matters most to you? It's about moving from accepting nonsense to seeking real understanding.
So the encouragement is to practice that discernment. Don't be afraid to question confidently presented claims, whether they seem complex or simple. And embrace the freedom that comes from humility in seeking real knowledge. It's a skill that truly serves you everywhere.
This was an audio recording of Elkan's Word for Today, the devotional for growing believers by Greg Elkan. For more information and other edifying resources, or to support this growing work, visit us at www.gregelkan.com. That's GREGELKAN.com. You can send your comments or questions by WhatsApp or Telegram to +234 813 664 2912. God bless you.